Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and we're in for a treat today. Another one of Scott's reels. This one was previewed. This is a Penguin 105, and I believe it might be made by Olympic. I believe it's a Japanese reel. Yes, it says Japan underneath there. And I think the same folks, if not Olympic as a sub-brand, made this reel. Well, Scott sent it in. It's an okay shape. It's not a collectible. You have filed off pieces of the reel foot are broken off, so that would certainly impinge on it. There's a lot of rusting going on there. There's pitting on the cap and the like. When it came in, the spool was bottoming out. Well, it doesn't bottom out right now because I added a washer on top of the click ratchet, which was missing. But we're going to take this reel apart. We'll show you how it's made and get it out there fishing again. So let's get started. We get started by removing the exterior pieces and parts. And I'll start today with taking off the spool. There's a star or a drag knob adjuster. I'll take that off. And then we can pick up the spool. The spool has a series of drag washers in it. We will go to that a little bit later. And here's what I added when I was testing the reel. I always test the reels before I give it a go in terms of servicing the reel. And it was missing this little shim washer here, causing it to bottom out. And you can see some of the scrapes right here on the counterweight is why that was happening. I'm a little bit unsure of whether this reel has been repainted or not. I'm seeing blue paint on the counterweight screws. I'm not sure if that's right or not. It may be, but regardless, this is a reel from the early 1970s or mid-1970s. You can tell that it's a metal case, very bulky. Kind of still has the element of design in it. It's not a unique kind of everybody's looks the same sort of a thing. It's got kind of a bell or almost a bowling pin bottom to it. So there was a little bit of styling thought going on to that. And I'm looking here where the paint is nicked off. There's a lighter blue underneath it, so I'm not sure again if this is a repaint or not. We're going to take the handle off next. That comes off by screwing it in a clockwise manner. You'll notice that I keep a glove on my hand. That glove helps keep the greases and dirts off of there. And then I put my pieces and parts. It's off camera, but I put them into a parts tray, which is the bottom of a fast food container. Well, hopefully we're going to be able to get these 3 screws out. These screws are steel, not stainless. They've got rust on them. And one of the problems, we're going to be able to do that one anyway. One of the problems that you have with steel and salt water is, well, they don't mix well together. And oftentimes they will rust, and it looks like the screw heads here are getting rusted. It's a way to save a couple of pennies on a fishing reel manufacturer, but it's not necessarily the best option that you have there. All right, before I take that last screw out, I'm going to turn it. I hear the anti-reverse click on. I want to move this to the off position so that if I do pull the main gear or something out, I don't disrupt the setting on that anti-reverse. All right, the 3 of those screws I did take out. I put them into a corner of my parts tray. And one of the things I wanted to make sure of was that those screws are all the same length. Well, we're going to remove the side case now. As we do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you like the art of fishing reel repair, if you like to learn more about fishing reels in general, and if you like to just kind of figure out how to service your own, well, that's what this channel is all about, teaching you to do it yourself and showing you the wide variety of fishing reels that exist out there in the marketplace. Everything from classic to current, spin reels, bait casting reels, trolling reels, everything is kind of shows up at my shop, and I show you how to work on them as I do my customers' work. All right, so the 3 screws are out, the case is loose. We should simply be able to pull this off, and that's about as simple a design as you can get in a fishing reel. So what we have here is a main gear, big gear, stud on that main gear, right there. That stud rides in the crosswind block. The crosswind block, because this is offset, that stud will go up and down as the stud moves on the gear. And then we have a pinion gear here, and I'm not sure if we have a ball bearing, it doesn't appear to be that, but we're going to find that out in just a moment. Again, I wonder on the repaint, if it was a repaint, looking on the inside of this. And well, I guess we'll find out. It's not important, or it's not material to the reel itself. All right, so what I did was I moved the anti-reverse to the off position. Now we should be able to remove the main gear, which we can. And for those of you that may be working on one of these and have got a detached spring for that anti-reverse, notice that it's not intuitive in terms of where that bottom arm rests. It's just resting against the hump in the side plate here. So what will happen is underneath this anti-reverse dog or claw, this is going to wrap around the spring, come up, go under the dog, and there's a little hook here on the back that's giving it the back pressure. If you ever find yourself looking for how to attach a spring, remember that there's got to be something pulling or pushing that anti-reverse dog into the groove in the back. In this case, the groove is on the main gear, and you need something to pull or push it into there. And then the override is normally a cam like this, where we'll just move it over now to show you how it sets in. It allows for the relaxation so that it's going to connect with those slots, and as you pedal the reel, it's going to be doing that. Well, I'm going to reset it back out. Another reason why I do that is, well, you need to get lucky. If you have that dog set in, you need to get lucky to have it land right in there. Otherwise, you'll trap that. So if you put it in the off position, you'll avoid that problem later with the reinstall. All right, and this case is about as clean as it's going to get. We'll just put a little bit on here. I'm going to use a penetrating oil as a cleaner. Usually I use that to dissolve the old greases, but well, there's no old greases in here to dissolve. So there's some in the bushing. It's a bushing, not a burring in the side plate. I'll take care of that. I use a cotton swab in that mop-up duty there. And I'll just use a paper towel now just to kind of take care of the rest of this. All right, we're going to set that off to the side. We're going to inspect the main gear now. We want to make sure all of these teeth are uniform. Do it from two sides. Look at it this way. Make sure all the points are nice and crisp. And then look at it this way to make sure that they're all aligned symmetrically so that you don't have an issue with one of them kind of grinding. Once you do that, you would clean it if there's any debris in there, but there's no debris. So just use a fishing reel grease. I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease here. And we'll just put a nice coat onto the teeth. And you also want to get it onto the face because that stud and the face are going to interline here at the crossline block. I'm going to set that aside. We'll come over here and we'll take that crossline block off of the axle shaft. As I do that, I want to suggest to you, if you have any questions on fishing reel repair, maybe you're working on one, maybe you're interested in it as a hobby, maybe you're curious why your reel isn't working but you can't seem to diagnose the problem, leave those questions in the comments section. I will try to give you an answer to that. Most of the times I will check my messages in the morning, and I'll try and get you an answer before I start the day down in the shop. All right, did the same thing here. I took the two screws out, made sure they are the same for the crosswind block, put them in a different corner of my parts tray just so they're easily located, and with those two screws out you should be able to pull the axle shaft out. If that axle shaft is not coming out easily like this one, there's a chance that that axle shaft may be bent. So pay attention as you're removing that to make sure that your axle shaft is okay. All right, this block is symmetrical. It looks like you can flip it either way and not have a problem with the reinstall. This is a good place to tell you to take pictures as you're doing this. I'm taking pictures on my video, but take pictures so that you know that. And pay particular note to that crosswind block in your reel if it's not symmetrical. One side's going to be going up and the other side will be down, and if you reverse them, a lot of times your reel just simply will not work. All right, so we've got that. We have a main gear that only has one side drive, so it's not going through the case. And now we have to remove the rotor here to service that. This looks like it might be, yeah, I was going to say it might be a 12 millimeter, but that's not the case. Looks like it might be a 13. I'm going to go ahead and try and find the 13 in here. I keep all of these close by in my ratchet training because I don't normally like to put a project reel down and then have to go figure out where the tools are and come back and forget what I've done. All right, this one is a deep socket. You can't get that with a wrench, right? You can't reach in there and get that like that. That's a 13 millimeter. So you want to use a socket wrench to do that. We're going to try and do this in a traditional offset manner, which is to remove this counterclockwise. And that's the way this one comes off. So I'm not familiar with all of the Olympic reels from the 1970s. Not sure if this is one of those or if it was done by one of those contract manufacturers in Japan, but regardless, it is a Japanese-made reel. There is a spring clip here, and there's a ramp on this side. There's a lot of parts that just fell out here, so kind of grab your breath, if you will. But on this spring clip, this is what's going to trigger. You're going to have your ramp set. You'll notice that that spring clip pushes it up and holds that set. And then that clip is going to ride up this ramp, and that's what's going to cause the bail to trip. Well, all of this is working, so you don't need to do anything here other than make sure that all debris and dirt are clear of there. I like to just kind of spray all around with the WD-40 or penetrating oil of your choice. And just let it work itself in. If you want, you can go underneath and play with it to make sure that it snaps. Just be careful. It's like a mouse trap. If you're not watching, it'll snap your hand, snap your fingers. So at least know which side it's going to go on. Kind of hit it. Works beautifully. No more work need to be done there. All right, you saw the pinion gear fall out. I think that the one screw, I'm just going to look through the case here. No, I guess that's not it. I was thinking the one screw may be a tie screw, but it's not. All right, so everything seems clear here, and I'm just curious whether... All right, well, that answered my question. I was trying to figure out where that washer went, whether it went underneath in the case or went up. Remember, that fell. So just putting that washer on says it goes no further than here, which means that this is the piece that's in the case bushing, and the washer goes on the top of this assembly, not the bottom. All right, I just wiped it off. If you wanted to polish it, you could use a steel wool, kind of polish it up. And just like we did with the main gear, what you want to do is check all of the teeth, make sure that they're not chipped or cracked. You do that by rotating it. And then if you want to clean out those teeth, you can use a pick, kind of work that through. Just like that, just to make sure that there's nothing stuck in there. And again, if you test your reel, or if it's your reel you're working on beforehand, you'll notice if there's a little bumping or grinding or something going on, and that'll be a clue to check a little bit closer. Sometimes you get a piece of broken line or something trapped in there, and that'll cause it to kind of limp along there and give you a hit, and that's where you want to go take a look. It's usually trapped in the teeth, and very small pieces will cause big problems. All right, once you've buttered it all up, put it back in the assembly. Take that washer next, seat that, then the rotor goes on, and we have that nut. And I like to tighten that nut by hand first. I don't want this to cross thread. I've got a reel here from Mon, who sent me an Okuma that had the top post cross-threaded, and I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the darn parts on it. So Just a word to all, make sure that you don't cross through it. Okay, we've tightened that up. That's the way we found it. If you had any questions, you can go back to your pictures you're taking and look to make sure that that's the way it goes. Give it a spin. Well, it's spinning nicely. So there's no ball bearings in this reel. I've come to realize that. And the case serves as the bushing for the pinion gear as well as the main gear. All right, we can go now and we can do the crosswind block and the axle shaft. Now the axle shaft came out nice and easily. Again, just like the other one, you can use a 4-0. Do not go any more coarse than a 4-0 steel wool, which is a polishing grade of steel wool, if you're going to use it. And light coat of grease onto the axle shaft. We're going to bring that down through the pinion gear, and then we're going to grab that crosswind block. And because that crosswind block's got two arms on it that are going to ride on those little metal shafts on the side, put a little bit of grease onto that. Bring that in, and then as you're bringing your gear through, align those holes in the axle shaft with the screw holes. So that you can put those two retaining screws in. Go into that corner on the side there. This is where pictures help because, well, there's a couple of different screws in my parts tray there. And if you got confused, now this one's got different diameter screws there, but if you did get confused, you could go back to the pictures and see, was it a flat head or was it a slotted head versus a Phillips head or whatever. All right, here's the second one of those. All right, we have the main gear left, we have the side plate left, and we have the drag washers left to install. Again, this is a steel bale that was plated. It's a little rough, so don't be afraid to use the steel wool on here to take off any burrs, because those burrs will affect the line. It'll cause it to kind of abrade, and those will help the line to tear. All right, we're going to take that brush, we're going to put that in. Now there's two ways to install the main gear. One way that you could do it is line that stud up and put it in here, and then align your case to it, or you can put it into the case, which is kind of the way I prefer to do it. Put it into the case first. Make sure your dog is off. Put it into the case, and then you can come around and you can eye it up. Now I know that that's towards the bottom of the throw. This is the bottom of the case, so let's turn that to the bottom here. And then as we go to install, just kind of clamshell it. And what you want to do now is you want to turn the top and make sure that your axle shaft is going up and down. And it's going up and down. That's telling you that you've successfully put the stud into the crosswind block. Well, Scott sent me these reels. I do repair reels by mail. The notion behind this channel is to kind of be a teaching channel, show you how to do it yourself, but I understand there's folks out there that either don't want to do it themselves or feel that they can't do it themselves, or maybe they're just time constrained. So I do repair the reels by mail, repair and service. And if you're interested in that, send an email to the address on the business card that follows, and I'll be happy to respond. This again tells you it's a steel screw. I have a magnetic tip, and that screw is kind of sticking to it, actually causing me problems as I'm trying to start it. But there we go. All right, two screws are in. This reel will last a long time. And why? Why do I say that? Well, what's to break? There's very few moving parts on it. It's a simple reel. It's well over engineered. Nobody's ever going to crack the case on this one. And it will last with some simple maintenance like what we're doing here. What is simple maintenance? It's clean, it's inspect, it's replace any worn parts, it's relube. That's it. That's all you need to do to keep a reel that will fish on for a long time to go. All right, we've got that. Let's go over to the spool then. And this is another one, it just makes you question. I have a black spool on a blue reel. You think either that the spool has been replaced or that repainting has gone on, or just don't know. Reels, if reels could talk, right? All right, we're going to look for the drag washers now. There's a C-clip that holds that drag stack in place. Be careful when you remove that. It's a spring, it can shoot. Let's see what we have underneath here. Okay, important to keep the sequence of the pieces underneath together. Looks like we just have some, well, it's kind of an oily substance or something. Just going to make sure that there's no dirt or that lodging in there. So the first one was this little spring washer on the bottom. I'm going to get that nestled in there. Just like that. There's a second one. So far, it seems to be that it's mostly a metal type of a drag system. There's two of those tension washers that are going in the base. Then we have the eared washer. That's the one with the 2 points. Those 2 points nestle into the spool slots like that. All right, then we just have one hard washer. That's it. One hard washer. There's a little bit of flexibility to it, so it may be leather. We're going to take some drag grease and we're just going to work that in. That's another reason why I wear the glove. It can be a tool for helping me to do things like this without worried about getting it all over my hands. We'll put that back in. And we got the top washer. This just seems to be tarnished, but you can use that steel wool to buff the contact area for the drag washer, just so that if there was a burr on there, you wouldn't have a problem with it when you want to use your drag washer, having it rip into that drag washer. C-clip started on one corner, work it around. There's a slot that it sits in. Press it down to make sure that it's in the slot. It's nothing more than a retention ring. That's its purpose. It's just going to hold the drag stack in place. I'm just trying to line this up right now. There we go. And so that's properly in place now. You'll see that it moves, but the drag washers can't fall out. Little squirt of oil on your click ratchet. Time to reinstall this. Now there's a slot here, and that top metal washer has the point that's going to ride in that slot. So when you go to put that up, make sure that it meshes together. We'll take that top adjuster now. That's almost time for a test. I'm going to tighten this down for the test to make sure that the drag is holding. It's holding perfectly. I'll put that handle back on. If you like, you put a drop of oil on there. Remember, that's going right into the main gear. So what we've seen is we've got a main gear bushing, single-sided, and we have a top bushing. All right, let's give it a ride. So first off, remember we took that anti-reverse in the off position, and I like to test there because if it's not making any noise there, well, you've done everything right. We're going to go put it back onto the anti-reverse, make sure that that's working. And of course, we did play a little bit around with the bail, so let's make sure that the bail is tripping, and that's it. So there you go. The Penguin 105 Japanese fishing reel, 1970s, possibly a repaint, maybe not. Quite a beast, but simple. simple in all regards. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Before I leave, I would like to thank our first responders and essential personnel for everything it is that they've done to keep us safe during the pandemic. Thank you for your service and continued due diligence and everything as you kind of work through this with us. To all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.